most people. So today, we're going to go through an abbreviated version of the frontline duties. As you know, typically we train the ID checker, the ballot clerk, and the tabulator tender together during this meeting, along with the moderators and assistant registrars. For this meeting today, we're not going to be training that first line of ID checkers, paper checkers, and ballot clerks, because that's one person. We're calling them a super checker, and they are basically going to be checking people off and handing out the ballots. So they were trained in an hour-and-a-half long class. Tony, you got unmuted, so I'll mute you again. If anybody wants to see that training, we have posted that training online, and I will review with you how to get to that training at one point during the meeting. So we're taking all of these trainings and posting them on YouTube. So as I mentioned, the ID checker is basically the same person. So they'll be checking ID, they'll be checking people off on paper, and they will be the ballot clerk. This is obviously going to be a super important position, and these folks are, they have no backup as they normally do an election, because there's no computer checker, there's no one else sitting there with tally sheets, so they need to be super accurate. We want to keep them away from distractions during the day, and my guess is most of them, who are very conscientious, are going to take relatively short breaks, because when you're a paper checker, you tend to not like to hand over your book to other people, because they're responsible for it at the end of the night. Now, I point this out because if you are an assistant registrar or a moderator, it is good to watch their training video, which I mentioned, so you do know properly how to handle their book if you have to relieve them, which you will be doing just by virtue of standard mask breaks, lunch, dinner, etc. After reviewing the tabulator tender, COVID safety monitor, we'll take a break. Tony will be able to get to his 10:15 meeting, and then we will start in with everyone else, which should go pretty quickly today. So, as I said, we'll run through the moderators and things like that. We'll go through our regular reminders really quickly. We're not aware of any issues related to any of the schools. We are in all of the traditional polling places. We were not able to, because we have, the availability of telephone lines and social distancing, etc., move these around in the buildings. Many of them are air conditioned. For those that are not, we do have giant fans to blow the air around, and let's hope we're in a little bit of a cold snap at that point. We are also, there's going to be clearly marked bathrooms for poll workers, okay? Because the school, needs to, clean and sanitize these facilities afterwards, so they would prefer people do not walk around the building. The other important part related to that is, obviously you're all in very large spaces, and typically, I know you're used to having another room that's like a break room or a lunch room or something like that. The schools have asked us to basically just segregate one corner of these very large spaces for you to take your breaks, or of course you're welcome to go outside, but they did not want to have to clean yet another space. The cost and time involved in that is quite a bit. So everyone will be getting an additional $15 in their paycheck to pay for snacks for themselves. Okay, so we are not going to be providing snacks because we want everybody to bring their own individual prepackaged items right? So, so nobody will be dipping their hand into the pizza or the chips or whatever the case is. So do make sure that you have all of the food and beverages that you need for the day in a little cooler or something like that, so that you are, you know, uh, ready to sustain yourself for what should be a fun-filled day. Breaks. So there are going to be 6 people total in each polling place. So as always, we ask you to be mindful of your breaks, because people do have to cover you. And of course, you do want to take time for, in some cases breakfast, but, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And the idea is you take the time necessary to give yourself a little break, take off your mask, have your meal, okay? But, it's not a lunch hour or a dinner hour. I think all of you know that. The idea is then you get back into position. Books, phones, knitting. Generally, we expect this to be pretty slow because so many people are voting by absentee ballot. So, feel free to bring whatever you want to keep yourself occupied in your off time. You're not going to have a buddy sitting next to you, right? There's not going to be, a computer checker or anything. So it's going to be a little quieter in the polling place from a chat perspective. So keep yourself occupied. I don't mind anything that you want to play with, so long as when a voter comes, they get your full attention. Skirts below the knee, that's just an old joke that I tell every time. That I once had a poll worker ask in the summer, is it all right, can we wear a skirt so long as the skirt is below the knee? And I said, would be fine with me if you're welcome to wear a skirt above the knee, whatever makes you happy and comfortable on election day. So we're early in the training, and now is probably a good time for me to pause and give answer number 1 for those people who are going to be watching this on video. Okay, so let me pull that up. So if you are watching, okay, on video, on YouTube, this morning I happened to be listening to some Elton John, and the answer number 1, which you'll have to mail to us, is Candle in the Wind, okay? Candle in the Wind. Now, answer number 2 will not be displayed on the screen. So you can't just like fast forward through the video. That's going to be an oral answer for those who are watching on YouTube, okay? And you never know when it's going to appear. Okay. I'll pause that. Get back to our training. So why don't we start with our safe poll worker instructions at this time, Mary, if
okay, very
you're
good.
ready for that.
So most of what I'm going to say is pretty obvious to everybody at this point, but I think it's good to just review it. In the days leading up to primary day, of course, you're doing these things anyway, but maintain good social distance. Wear a mask anytime you believe you may not be able to maintain a good social distance. And always when you're going inside, really any building other than your own home. These things are obvious, but the key point here is that you'll be in a room with other poll workers for a long period of time. And what we understand about the virus is that being inside is the time when you need to be most careful. So you don't want to have any doubt about your own health situation. So avoid large groups, including family gatherings. Wash your hands more than ever. And this really is the most important point. If you believe you have come into contact with anyone who is not well or who has been exposed to someone diagnosed with the COVID virus, let us know immediately. Do not hesitate to call us even at the last minute, because everyone's safety is the most important thing. Please do not call us if there's some other reason that you feel you need to cancel at the last minute, but by all means, if it's COVID virus related, don't hesitate to call us. We'll be perfectly understanding and very happy to hire you to work in November. Okay, Fred. So there is, I'm not even sure I should be showing this at this point. There is a quick results COVID test, but I've heard varying things about how quick the results are. This information will be shared, as Fred mentioned, online. So if this is something that becomes of interest to you and you are able to follow up and do get a test result that clears you, even though you may think you have had some contact issue, that this is a possible option. The more likely option is that if you feel you've had a contact issue, you would be calling Fred or me to say, unfortunately, you're not able to work that day. Thanks, Fred. All right, so on the primary day itself, when you get up, I know it's very early, but please take your temperature. If you happen to have a fever, call us. As Fred mentioned, please pack all your food and beverages for the day. Wear a mask when you're entering your polling place. But once you get there, we have many masks, 2 different types of masks, a very adequate supply of disposable gloves, and you are to help yourself as you need to these personal protection items. You can wear disposable gloves. You can sanitize those gloves. You can replace the gloves every hour or 2. In the polling place, this may not be as important as it would be for the absentee ballot counters who are spending the day exchanging materials with each other as they do recounts and that sort of thing. But it's optional to the poll workers. Some people feel more comfortable with the gloves. Some people feel that if they're wearing the gloves, they're less likely to be touching their face, which is good. Use hand sanitizer anytime you wish, anytime, and absolutely when you believe you've come into contact with a surface that's outside your work area. Before and after you use the restrooms. If you leave the polling place to go outside and get a breath of air without your mask, by all means, as you leave, use hand sanitizer, and as you come back, use hand sanitizer. The polling places will be well supplied with all these. Okay, Fred? Oh, Matt, yes, and here we are. You have our contact information, but here it is. This will be posted online, and thank you very much.
So we also have, I found the face shield picture.
Oh, good. I forgot about that. Yes.
We also have face shields available if you'd like to wear them. And we'll point out that if you are, or the checkers who are sitting at a table all day will have a plexiglass shield in front of them. I believe we're going to try and supply one additional one for sort of a moderator table so that if for some reason you needed to have a voter come and talk to you, you could kind of sit them down so that you have the shield in front of you, but we also have face shields, or feel free to bring your own. So here's what a face shield looks like. Here's the appropriate way to wear a face shield, okay? This is not the appropriate way to wear a face shield. This is only the way you wear a face shield if you have to work in our office on your birthday, and because your trip to Atlantic City was canceled. But otherwise, okay, we would prefer that you wear it like this. All right, so let's see. So now let's go back to sort of our standard agenda, and we'll talk a little bit more about the tabulator tender. So, and I'll just start this off, and then Mary, you made the deck, so I'll let you run through it. But basically, tabulator tender in this case is almost a moot point because we're not using a tabulator, okay? There will be no running of tapes. There will be nothing posted on the wall. You will just have the black box that will be there, and where normally the ballot gets slipped in and falls from the tabulator into the black box, there's little arrows that point to people, and they just slip their ballot in there. So we did that for a few reasons. The first is it's a super simple election. The ballots are both color-coded by party, and you literally only have one dot per ballot. So we're able to give everybody disposable pencils. We don't have to worry if they're read by the tabulator, etc. We're just going to sort the ballots into pile at the end of the night. The second reason is we're going to be sanitizing things, and people are going to be using hand sanitizer all day long, which would wet the ballots. Okay. We, unlike other towns, don't have to worry about that because we're not going to be putting wet ballots through a tabulator. We're just going to be sorting them. They can get as wet and as filled with Purell as they like. It'll dry out and it'll be totally fine. So as a result, that tabulator tender, who also will not be giving out stickers, is basically going to be sort of a roving person who we refer to as the COVID safety monitor, okay? And I will sort of let Mary run through the combined role.
Okay, so first the business side of the role is that you're responsible as a tabulator tender for seeing that the voters place their ballots into the voting bin. This will be labeled, it'll be very obvious, but you know, if anybody has any questions, some people may wonder why there isn't a tabulator. They may be used to seeing that. They just slip their, you can explain to them, and they slip their ballot into the bin. If they leave a ballot on top of the bin and it is not actually fed into the slot, the law allows you to slide the ballot into the bin. However, if they leave their ballot anywhere else in the polling place, including if they've chosen to use a privacy booth, the ballot cannot be voted. You give the stray ballot to the super checker. Are you making a little, thank you. I meant to check that one. Thanks, Fred. You give the ballot to the super checker, who will mark the ballot abandoned and adjust her records. So part of your responsibility is to periodically check the privacy booths to be sure nothing has been left in them. It could be a ballot, it could be a stray piece of paper. Those should be cleaned and the ballot treated correctly, and any other stray items discarded. So now we're on to your special COVID safety monitor duties. Is there a question?
Mary, yes, I do have a quick question. It might be a good time to ask. If a voter wants to know, without a tabulator, how they know their vote is safe and valid, can we tell them who's going to be doing the counting, or how are we keeping them private until they are counted?
Yes, I would definitely mention that counting will be done by two people. It's never done by one person. And that it will be, you know, the count will be rechecked. One person will count, the other person will recheck. So I think that should provide some assurance. Maybe Fred has more.
Well, the counting is going to be done at the end of the evening in the polling places by the people that the voter can observe standing around the room. You know, they are hired by both parties. And, you know, we chose to do it this way because of the simplicity of the ballot, right? Once the ballots are divided according to the single vote on the ballot, you simply count the pile. So if there had been even two races, we would have used the tabulator and had to change our procedures, but this was kind of the simplest, the absolute simplest way to do it.
Oh, you know, another point is that after the polls close at 8 o'clock, of course, that's when the counting will occur. And members of the public are entitled to be in the polling place at that point. So if somebody is concerned they could, in fact, come to the polling place after 8 o'clock. Sorry about the lapping dog in the background here. I don't know how to mute the dog and keep myself. So anyway, that's another thing that I think would assure voters.
Thank you.
Okay, Mary, your slides.
Okay. Yes. Are we doing okay with the sound of the dog? I'm sorry about it.
Yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
not too bad.
Okay, very good. So the COVID safety monitor, you basically are in charge of policing the polling place to keep it sanitized and safe for the other poll workers, for the voters, and for yourself. So when you arrive, familiarize yourself with the safety equipment, meaning the mask, gloves, and face shields, but also the cleaning supplies, of which there will be many. Be sure that all poll workers are always wearing their masks inside. This is not, I think, 100% accurate, because in some of the polling places, you could, if you wanted a break or wanted to have a drink or a snack, go to a far corner of the polling place, keeping your social, not a 6-foot social distance, but a large social distance from the other poll workers and from the voting area. But if it's a nice day, I would recommend going outside, just because you'll be getting a better breath of fresh air. So in general, if you're in the voting area, absolutely, entering, leaving, and in the voting area, you have to have your mask on. So after the voters have passed through the super checker station and have deposited their ballots into the bin, and at a time when there's no other voters entering the polling place, you'll have to use your good judgment here. Take the opportunity to sanitize any surfaces that may have been touched by voters. So you'll be sanitizing the voter side of the super checker table. You'll be sanitizing the privacy booths that have been used. If any, voters are definitely not required to use a privacy booth. This is a very simple ballot. And the ballot bin itself, where the voter will have placed their ballot into the bin. At least every hour or so, wipe down the door handles and any other surfaces that might have been touched. And just use your common sense to keep the polling place as safe as possible.
Mary?
Yes.
If they're not required to use the privacy booths, where are they supposed to mark their ballot?
So we're recommending that voters, and we will be publicizing this week, bring into the polling place with that. They actually could just hold the ballot. It's one thing that they're marking. This wouldn't work for a more complex ballot, but they're marking one little circle. You could just hold the ballot in your hand, mark your circle, and be done with it. And that is really what I think the sensible thing to do is. But the privacy booths are available. So a voter is definitely welcome to use a privacy booth. We're also not planning to use the privacy folders. If somebody is missing a private, they really want something like that, we'll just have a stack of paper. They can take a sheet of paper, put it over their ballot, and discard that paper at the polling place.
Mary, I think you missed one thing. What we're publicizing is we're going to ask people, bring a hard service with you. Bring a book.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So you carry your own book in, you put the paper on it, you do the circle, you carry your book out, and you never have to touch a privacy booth. But of course, they are available for those who want them.
Could we get some, Fred, could we get some disposable, like cardboard, pile of cardboard or something like that to give out to people who need it? And then throw, and then toss it? Or take it with them?
Well, I mean, I don't think I can get hundreds of pieces of cardboard. We're pretty much have packed our supplies, but I think we're going to be publicizing this, fairly well. Remember, it's a single dot. So
I,
in a worst case scenario, you will have privacy folders there.
Privacy booths, yeah.
No, we will also have privacy folders because they're stacked in, they're already packed in the blue bin.
Oh,
So,
okay.
you know, in a worst case scenario, pull one of those out. We don't want them on the table, but pull one of them out and give them to a voter who, you know, has no other way to fill in a dot. But I think we're talking about an edge case here, right? I mean, I could take my wallet out, right? And I could, you know, or my phone or whatever, and it's a flat surface and I can put my ballot and make one circle. And remember also, it's going to be read by hand. So it's not, you know, it's, you know, even if they miss the circle and they circle the name, etc., we're going to have the voter intent. It's going to be very clear.
They may just put a mark through the circle, which ordinarily might not be read by the machine, but it will be fine.
I have a question about the masks. Is it, if someone chooses to wear the shield, they don't have to wear the mask with it, do they? It's one or the other?
Are you talking about poll workers or voters?
Poll workers.
So it's optional, of course, but I would
it's-
recommend wearing the mask and the shield. I don't think the shield, for a couple of reasons, but maybe Fred, you feel differently. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we're following state law here. State law says if you can't appropriately social distance, you should be wearing a mask. Now, there are people who have medical conditions. For instance, I know one of my little daughter's friends, you know, the kid has asthma, he can't wear a mask. He's wearing a face shield to school. So I would say for all poll workers listening, okay, if for some reason you are unable to wear a mask, okay, please contact us. Okay,
Thanks.
because our supposition was that you either A, have a comfortable mask, or B, we're providing both surgical masks or KN95 masks, not N95, but KN95, right, which I've been using some of them and testing them, and they're eminently breathable, right? And so we've got some good options for you besides whatever face covering you bring.
The picture you had in your slides, she only had the shield on.
Oh, well,
So
she
I
was
wanted to verify
yes. She was
mask
just
and
modeling the
shield,
yes.
or mask or shield.
Yeah. That was for entertainment, not instruction. Thank you.
Okay.
You got another
So,
slide?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So what about the people that come in with a cane or walkers, or, you know, they have had some difficulty, they really need to lean on something when they make their vote?
Yes. So there will be privacy stands they will be at the polling place.
Yes, there'll be
Okay.
as many there as at any other election.
Okay, all right,
We're just saying for those who are averse to using them,
gotcha. Okay, thank you.
don't use them. Yeah, but absolutely, they'll be there. There will be a handicap stand. There will be the standard IVS machine. Everything that is normally there to accommodate a voter is there.
Fred, may I ask what happens or who's going to stop someone wanting to come in the polling place without a mask?
No one. So
What do you do then? Do you stop them?
no, you will spend more time and more air stopping, you know, working to stop the person than letting them proceed through the polling place. So they have a constitutional right to vote. We have asked this question, and you know, could we force the person to curbside voting, etc.? And we were told no. So my suggestion is you are protecting yourself as best as possible. If the person, you know, goes to the official checker, right, and they're behind a shield, right, and the official checker is appropriately masked, nobody else is going to be anywhere near that person. They're going to put their ballot in the tabulator by themselves, and they're going to walk out.
And the
Okay.
COVID safety monitor will do an excellent job of cleaning all surfaces
Yes,
right
we'll
after that.
be behind
Yeah.
the person, just
Yeah.
dousing them
Yes.
in
You know,
I-
Fred,
Hey.
you also mentioned, you mentioned something which I know at the high school, we always have about 3 or 4 people that can't get out of their car or can't make it up the stairs or can't do that. And you've sent people outside to take their ballot and whatever. Are you going to do that this year?
Absolutely. All the regular laws are still in place. So if that voter, so I want to point something out. So when we say we have 3 or 4 people, if you have regulars, that's not appropriate. Okay. And I would like the names of the regulars. Curbside voting is meant for people who have a temporary and close to the time of the election infirmity. That means they didn't have time to get an absentee ballot, and that's why they're coming to the polling place. But if you have somebody who every year, we had this once in town hall, you know, the guy came one year, then the next year, he didn't even send somebody in. He called on the phone and said, I'm here. And while we did accommodate him that one year, we sent him a very nice letter explaining that we do not offer drive-through voting. This is meant for a temporary infirmity. So if again, if you have that, and I've known people that have, by all means. But if you have regulars, we would like to know that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I wanted to return back to the mask for one sec. If a voter arrives without a mask, some of those voters, I don't think actually this is going to happen very often, that people will arrive without a mask. But if they do, it's possible that they just left their mask at home, that they are perfectly happy to wear a mask, and they just don't happen to have it at that moment. In which case, we have plenty of masks for the very small number of voters this would apply to set the mask at a distance, have the voter pick up the mask and put the mask on and proceed through the process. But there possibly could be those voters who are just simply defiant, and although they should be wearing a mask, they just will not wear a mask. And those were the ones Fred was talking about, having them move through as quickly as possible.
So
I
Mary,
suspect we
Mary?
won't have those. Yes.
So a good thing to do when someone's not wearing a mask, I do this in a store, pretend like you're coughing.
Well, you will have a mask on, so they may feel, but in any event, yeah. Okay, shall we go back to the COVID safety monitor, interactions with voters?
Yes.
So we've covered it by discussing the mask situation, but do not interfere in any way with voters moving through the polling place. But do keep an eye on where they are, what surfaces they may touch, and as promptly as possible, sanitize those surfaces. If there are any voter safety issues, such as the mask situation, communicate with the moderator or assistant registrars, and they will handle the situation. They can gently remind the voters to wear a mask. They can set a mask off to the side and at some distance and let the voter pick up the mask. But if the voter doesn't want to wear it, as we've said, they are entitled to vote.
All right, let's see. Mary, I believe that's your last slide.
I think it is.
Okay. So then I think the final thing I'm going to stop sharing for a second. The final thing for tabulator tenders and COVID safety monitors before we dismiss you is that you will find in the blue bin, let's see, can you see this little card I'm holding up? Am I still sharing my screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will have a series being like thousands of these little cards, okay? So you can basically lay them out on a table so people can pick them up if they want them. You're not giving out stickers. But what these are is they're going to be a survey that the voter can take when they get home or at their convenience to let us know their opinion of how the polling place was set up, whether they felt safe voting, what other accommodations they might like to see in the future, etc. So we definitely would like to hear from voters related to that. Okay? All right, so let me share again. Okay, are we back to my screen here? All right. So let's see. Let me get back to the main deck here. All right. So we'll go through quickly, and then we'll dismiss the tabulator tenders. In general, we always talk about who can be in a polling place. That's poll workers, voters, minors who are with the voter themselves. Now, we're hoping people are not going to be bringing entourages in during a situation like this. But again, some people may also need someone to assist them. As we know, they can even ask you to assist them. But these are pretty, usually primary voters are kind of hardcore voters. So they know what they're doing. They've either voted by absentee ballot or they're going to come in, know what they want to do, and get in and out. But as a reminder, no candidate may assist a voter, no employer may assist a voter, no union rep may assist a voter. Who can be in the polling place? The representative of the Secretary of State. I don't think we're going to see that, but it can happen. They will bring appropriate credentials in the form of a letter authorizing them as part of the Secretary of State's, polling place review. Folks, there's a group from the American or the Connecticut Bar Association who are empowered to do that. Members of the press who must identify themselves. They should also be wearing a mask. I'll tell you, if they're not wearing a mask, I'd feel a little more comfortable throwing them out because they have no constitutional right to vote. Okay, and there is always that general statute that says, the free flow of the polling place, and I would consider that a disruption for a member of the press not to be masked.
Yes.
And again, folks who cannot be in, especially in primaries, where everybody's gotten much better at this, but we used to have party officials who wanted to come in, thank the poll workers. We've had, the quote unquote entourage. I think one of the benefits perhaps of this is we won't be seeing a lot of this in our August primary. Let's see. To our knowledge, there's no bake sales. So those are organized through the school. So I think, again, that's something that won't be happening. And I'm not aware of any exit polling yet, but if it is done, it would be done outside of the 75-foot marker. Good luck to that exit pollster. I don't believe we have any half-day poll workers for this election. Mary, do you have any, to your knowledge?
No.
Okay, so we will skip that. And this goes back to what we were saying about letting the voter vote without a mask. So our job primarily is to enforce the election laws and not the health codes. Now, we're enforcing certain things because we want to protect the safety of our poll workers. But, and this was the case that I brought up to the Secretary of the State's office where they said, you don't want to be in this situation. So it was a similar situation where there was asbestos abatement going on in a polling place. The superintendent of schools told the registrars no one under 18 should, I think no one under 18, but certainly no children should be coming into the polling place because of the asbestos abatement. Someone had a young child. The poll workers effectively barred the door and said, no, we don't want you bringing the child in here. They voted curbside. The voter did not want curbside voting. And the solution eventually was they rolled the tabulator outside the door so that the voter could place their own ballot in the tabulator. The SEEC found the poll workers guilty, even though they tried to do all of these things. And guilty, they didn't pay a fine or anything, but they did have to sign a consent agreement saying that they would not do this again, as did the registrars. And it was said that the school, the police, the health department, let them monitor these issues. Our job is to let any eligible voter cast their ballot. Again, that's where the mask thing also comes in. So we're going to skip through ID checker training. Now, if you're a moderator or an assistant registrar, the ID checker, the official checker, all the ballot clerk training that is in that YouTube video, which you can get to from our website, and we can skip all of that. And you can see it then and enjoy your morning. You can watch it at your convenience over the next couple of days. So at this point, tabulator tenders and COVID safety monitors are dismissed. Let me just take one more screenshot for our attendance purposes here of everybody, and then I'll just everybody. Hold on, please. Get all the smiling faces at once. Okay. Oh my gosh, everybody's actually smiling for it too.
Of course.
Except for Martine. Martine didn't smile. So, look, Joe, you put on your camera too late, Joe. That's all right. You don't have to turn on your cameras. I see your names in almost all the cases.
I was working.
Yeah. All right. So, again, thank you for tab tenders, COVID safety monitors. You are done. Of course, you're welcome to stay and watch. But otherwise, we're going to go to question number 2. Okay. Or answer number 2 for those who are watching on YouTube. And so I'm not putting anything on the screen. Somebody needs to be paying attention to what I'm saying at this moment in time. And the answer number 2 is wear your mask. Okay, so if you have to send your answers in, answer number 2, wear your mask. All right, so
Brett?
yes.
Brett? Sorry, Janet and I got on late because of our internet situation. What was answer number 1?
Well, now you're defeating the purpose.
You don't need to know it.
No, we'll tell you later.
We'll tell you later offline, Joe. We'll tell you.
Take care, Fred. Mary, we'll see you.
Thank you very much.
Hang off.
Thank you.
Marion, you have a question? Or Marion, we can't hear you. Hold on, let me unmute you. Okay, Marion, go ahead with your question.
May voters use the bathroom?
Voters may use the bathroom. There is one set of bathrooms that is designated for voters and poll workers. Again, I hope they're going to be in and out so quickly that that's not going to be an issue for most, but it can arise. We do not anticipate any lines at the polling place.
And one more question. Do you want us to offer the survey card to everybody?
Well, we would love that. We would love at some point to say, would you take one of these, et cetera. But, we understand that some people are going to be hesitant to want to take one. So, but hey, you're welcome to say, here, I'll spray it with a little hand sanitizer for you beforehand.
They can take a picture of it.
They can also take a picture of it. That's right.
Would that be the tabulator tender who would offer it?
Yeah, well, what we thought was they could literally just, normally they have stickers that they put all around the tabulator, sort of on the sides.
Yep.
They could just have a selection of cards laying there so people can pick one up if they want them.
Yes, I don't think handing off is the word, because that really is too too unnecessary and too close contact. They should just be set down maybe in an array so it's very easy for somebody to just pick one.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Fred, logistical question.
Um,
With this,
Rick, hold on one second because Carol has been waiting also.
I just wondered if they don't want to take the card physically, can they access the questionnaire from your website, from the town hall voters?
We will post it on the website, but in general, our feeling is that you know, people don't remember these things, right? So
No, but if you
yes.
tell them, go to the voters
Yes,
registrar
Yes.
in
correct.
town
But
hall
yes,
website.
there will be a questionnaire there for voters who voted in person, and there'll be a separate one for people who voted by absentee ballot. Rick, you had a question.
yeah, well, with this, I love Zoom training, but how do we get our keys?
Okay, so that's a great question. And that's actually something that we're talking about because, as you know, there are 7,000 absentee ballot applications that have come to the town clerk. Now, most of those people have still not gotten their ballots, unfortunately, because there's been a snafu with the state related to that. But our hope is that still all 7,000 come back. Now, as you know, usually that means that there would be an enormous number of red A's pre-printed in your book. And these are more red A's than we've ever had before, okay? Typically, we print the books on Thursday. But if we do that this time, and then they're just ready for you on Friday or Saturday. If we do that this time, it won't have all those red A's. And that means the checkers are going to have to manually put all those A's in, okay? So instead, what we're trying to do is we're going to work with the schools. This is theory, but we think we're going to, you know, get this done. We're going to work with the schools to print the books Monday morning. That will have all the red A's for all the ballots that have come through Friday. And we're going to ask the moderators or one of their assistant registrars, if the moderator can't do it, to pick up the materials at Town Hall after noon on Monday. I see, are there questions related to that?
Can you?
Now, I assure you, we're going to send out lots of communication related to this also, like, et cetera. But, you know, that's the plan right now. If the school says there's no way we can print these books on Monday morning, then we go back to printing them on Friday, and you can pick up the books, you know, Friday or Monday, et cetera. But
What does the school have to do with printing? I'm confused.
because we now have a consolidated duplicating department run by the Board of Education. The town hall does not have a duplicating department anymore.
How many pages is the book?
Well, there's a total of 1,200 pages being printed in 24.
No, for a given district.
Well, it's thick because remember, one book is going to have, they're each going to be like 20, 25 pages. Each.
But there's only, is there one book per district?
One book per line. So there'll be a Republican book and there'll be a Democratic book.
So what are we talking, 50 pages?
Yes.
I'm happy to print 100 pages. It's not a problem.
Well, if you, well, you still need to get, if you want to, after this call, if you want to somehow get your keys on Friday for someone.
I mean, just either way so that you can not worry about printing them on Monday morning.
I understand, but for most people, you know, there's a significant convenience to have the books comb bound so that they're easily flipped, etc. So, but if you want a different accommodation, that's totally fine. But for the most part, we're going to stick with the comb, the spiral binding. People.
Well, I was just making an offer.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. Whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we prefer the Saturday, so we know that there's no, you know, last minute issues. But, you know, we're all working through this, and we have no idea what we're going to do for November, because November, you know, another whole ball game, right? So okay, so I see Valerie, you have your hand up. I am gonna try to unmute you. I don't know if you're trying to unmute you too, and we're playing one of those games. Okay,
Can you hear me?
I can now hear you, Valerie.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry that I logged on a little late. Did you say that we were going to have gloves?
Yes.
You are. You will have gloves provided.
Okay.
And you can change them as often as you like. We have more gloves that you can shake a stick at. They're, what do you call it? You don't have to use gloves, but it's recommended. And as Mary says, what a lot of healthcare people say is the best use of the gloves is they remind you, I've got this glove on so I don't touch my face, right? So, but again, you don't have to use the gloves.
Okay. Now, because I work in healthcare and gloves are like a staple. So I just want to make sure we had some.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. And now, so I don't even know if I should mention this, but I'm going to mention it for fun. In Westport, they're giving workers hazmat suits. Okay? Can you imagine? I know they're a little off their rocker, but of course that's so uncomfortable that they're going to ask people to work 2 hours on and then to take a 2-hour break. And I'm like, what are the people going to do for 2 hours? Just sit there twiddling their thumbs? I don't know. But anyway, so we did not go with hazmat suits. So lucky you. Okay. I'm going to, let's see here. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, so then let's see. I think we're going to go really quickly from this point because
Brad?
Yes.
Brad, I'm sorry, I have a quick question going back to the cards, the survey. So because people want to know what the purpose of it is it to try to figure out what we're going to do in November?
Yeah, we want to know how their experience was voting with these safety accommodations we put in place. We haven't written the survey yet, but but yes, that's the general idea. Is we want to know how comfortable they were voting. Are there other safety considerations that we should be considering? Things like that, because we want everybody to have a great experience, whether they vote by absentee or in the polling place.
Right. Could you provide one larger one with the link so that we could post it so people can just take a picture?
Yeah, we could probably do that. Yep.
That would probably be put into the moderator bag.
Yeah. Mary, would you mind making a note for Arts and
Yeah,
Crafts
I am.
Anna?
Yeah.
And Arts and Crafts Anna, as we call her, we'll do that, and you'll probably get it laminated if she has any free time as well. And the edge is buffed so that there's nothing.
That's good.
Anna designed the cards too, by the way, so she did a great job. All right. Trish has got a thumbs up for Anna. More questions before we proceed?
I have a question.
Sure, Mary.
When you fill in for an official super checker, can a Republican fill in for either the Republican or Democrat super checker, or should it just be within your party?
I have no problem with anyone filling in for anyone.
I have no problem either.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are we doing 2 lines?
Yes. So one line for Republicans, gotcha. One line for Democrats. Yep.
And one final question. Which tally sheet? The one for the official checker or the one for the ballot checker?
That's a great question. So we told the super checkers that they're better off using the ballot clerk tally sheet because that has spaces for abandoned ballots and for spoiled ballots.
Good.
And if I'm smart about it, I'll only include that one. But since my package is pre-made, I don't know if I'll remember to do that. So, we'll say. Okay, so am I sharing at the moment?
You are sharing. We
good.
enforce election laws.
Okay, very good. So I don't have to say any of this great stuff about wet ballots, about error messages, about printing tapes, about fleeing voters. You already covered that. So we're going to skip through and basically give our standard spiel about the duties of moderators.
What about fleeing poll workers?
Fleeing poll workers will be shot on sight.
No.
What?
Too extreme.
Okay, fine. Tased on sight.
Oh boy, I think we need to move right on.
All right. So as you know, we now have moderators and assistant registrars on this call. Typically, the moderators are in charge of the paperwork, payroll, the results, and are the chief polling place official. They adjudicate challenges, help, giving out the provisional ballots, etc. The assistant registrars are there to essentially represent the registrars that are supposed to take care of list-related issues. That is the standard definitions that are in the state statutes. And the reality is that we let you divide the duties up amongst yourselves as you see fit. I've often before told the story of a three-man team that used to be in District 6, where one of the assistant registrars just focused on the moderator's return and making sure everything was complete. One loved to relieve poll workers and to greet voters, and also was in charge of the 70-foot signs and the privacy booths and stuff like that. Setup of the polling place in the morning. You need to make sure there's an American flag. All the posters should, yes. You need to make sure there's posters on the walls, sample ballots, and the IVS system is set up. So, related to the IVS system, we are you're used to having a special assistant registrar come and help you at the polling place set up the tabulator and the IVS system. There is no tabulator this year. We are having a limited number of special assistant registrars, and each one is scheduled to handle 2 polling places. So if you're lucky enough for them to be your first stop, that's great. You will see that they're setting up your tabulator, your IVS system. If they're your second stop, they should still be there and setting it up by 6 a.m. But I would remind you that we have a video online that you can watch that shows you basically how that machine is supposed to look and be set up, okay? And I will be sending those videos out as well so that you can see them. So where are those videos? Now might be a good time for me to point that out. Hold on, I need to move stuff around on my screen here. Pause this. Find my list here. Okay, so if you go to the Town of Greenwich webpage, you can kind of, navigate around and find us, or you can type in greenwichct.gov/vote, and it will take you directly to our page, okay? I want to work at the polls. Click on that, and you will see a section, poll worker training materials. Everything that we've gone over is here. All of the instructions for every kind of poll worker is here. The safe poll worker instructions that Mary reviewed this morning is here. The quote unquote big 3-hour presentation that we go over, which is not going to be 3 hours this morning, is here as a PowerPoint and as a PDF. Here's the recordings for the super checker and absentee ballot are already posted. And here you go, setup and use of the IVS ballot marking system. The one video that's not here is how to use your phone to check a voter checklist and check to, if you have a voter who is not on either of the lists, there is a special URL you can go to. We don't post that because we don't want everyone to know about that little tool. So we'll be sending that out to you in a reminder email separately. Okay. And you all know that I like to send out my "'Twas the night before the election" email that has all of these things, the passwords, the codes you need, reminders, the supplemental list, all that good stuff gets sent out the night before, usually by about 6 or 6:30, so that I can be in bed by 7. Okay, so questions?
Is there going to be Wi-Fi, good Wi-Fi at North Mianus? In the past, it's been, sometimes it didn't exist.
There was one time in particular where they had changed out some of the routers and had not done the right accommodations for us. But I believe that that has been solved. We'll double check that. Again, we also send out that password for that prior to the election.
Thank you.
So, yeah, there were, it was like Old Greenwich, North Mianus, maybe one other school. They had, redone stuff and they had forgotten to put in the special code for us. Okay.
Fred, I have a question.
Sure, Lucy.
Will we be calling in the hourly? Because there's no tabulator or anything. I mean, no computer.
The hourly count is, personally, I don't believe the hourly count is of huge interest for this election. Because, so much of it has been by absentee ballot that it's not in fact going to tell you much about turnout.
All right.
Yeah, so, and I also am not super concerned that you're going to run out of ballots, which is the reason why. So, unless we get a note from the Secretary of State, which sometimes happens, saying, what is your, can you give us a tally to date, et cetera? And in that case, we'll call you.
Got it.
But otherwise, I wouldn't worry about it. Now, while we are talking about ballots, so we gave you all a decent number of ballots. However, if you get to your last package, if there's suddenly, and this could happen, because remember, 7,000 people said they wanted to vote by absentee, and none of them, or virtually none of them, have gotten those absentees as of today, or at least as of this morning. So some of them may say, you know what, I don't know if my absentee is going to get back. I didn't get it, whatever. They may show up at the polls. This actually happened in other states. So if that does happen, we have given you all a ream of copy paper. There's a photocopier. We're hand counting the ballots. So you will inform us if you need to do it, and you will make photocopies.
Okay.
And you'll have to have a very strict chain of custody, making a certain number of photocopies, giving them to the ballot clerk in batches of, say, 50, right? And making sure that you can account for those ballots. I don't foresee that happening, but it basically is an easy fail-safe since we're already hand counting the ballots. Okay.
And are you giving us the colored paper so that we're still color coordinated with the parties?
No,
I didn't think of that, Carol. No.
Logistics, Fred. Logistics.
Yeah.
Yes, but that would mean in the count, you're simply initially dividing the ballots by party and then, or sorting into candidate piles, I guess.
It'll make sorting slightly harder on those. But again, you're going to see the ballot and you're going to have 7 choices of piles to put it on. Why are there 7 choices? because there's 3 Democratic candidates and a none of the above on the Democratic ballot. And there's
They call it uncommitted. Uncommitted. Yes. That's the terminology.
Yes. And there's two Republican candidates and an uncommitted on the Republican. So in total, you'll sort the ballots into 7 piles at the end of the night.
What are our colors?
I think blue and yellow. I think the Democrat is blue. I don't think the Republican is red. I think it's their yellow or buff color that they use. The red can cause problems with the tabulator and stuff like that.
If someone says they came, that they voted absentee and they want to vote in person,
well, so that's a great question. So it's going to be hard for us to keep up with the number of absentees. And what I mean by that is, yes, you're going to have all these red A's in the beginning of the day, but you're also going to have thousands of ballots that come in on Monday and Tuesday. Now, we're going to actually have runners give you computerized lists of those ballots. We're not going to call you because there's going to be so many of them. But there's 2 scenarios there. If a voter says they received an absentee ballot and they say they didn't vote it, or even if say they bring it into you as proof of that, then it's easy peasy. You just let them vote. Okay. If they say they voted by absentee, okay, and they're not on the list, okay, I would suggest that you pull them aside and call us, because the lists could still be in the process of generation, okay, and call our office, and we will attempt to look up to see if we received their absentee ballot. But in theory, if they sent that ballot in, okay, they should not be showing up at the polls, and really, unless they've gone to the town clerk's office by 10 o'clock in the morning and pulled that ballot, okay, they really should not be voting at the polling place.
if they mailed it the day before and it doesn't arrive till Wednesday, will they count it?
No, they won't. They
Okay.
won't. So, but what the mitigating factor, and hopefully there'll be press on that this week, is there are drop boxes. If you've still got your ballot in hand the day before the election, you do not mail it. Okay, it will guaranteed it will not be there. Okay, but there's a drop box that you can drive to. It's not, I won't say you can, it's not quite like a drive through at Dunkin' Donuts that you can hand it in, but if you get out of your car, it's right there under a shelter at Town Hall, and you can put your ballot in. It's open 24/7, and at the police station, under guard in the vestibule, there is also a drop box that is available 24/7.
So the drop box at Town Hall is very near the visitor parking lot. There was a parking meter type machine there formerly, and that's where they installed the ballot box at Town Hall.
Yeah, it's like under, it looks like it's under a bus shelter kind of. So.
And what time does it have to be in that box by to count?
8 p.m.
8 p.m. Sorry, Fred. Yeah.
8 p.m. Monday or the election day?
Tuesday.
Election day.
Tuesday. Okay.
Is anyone monitoring that box? Like, is there cameras on it?
Yes, there are cameras on both the boxes.
And the mail-in, it has to arrive at the town hall by 10 a.m.?
No, the mail-in is whenever the mail gets it there. So, so it's 8 p.m. So the town clerk will call the post offices, and if there are some ballots that arrive at the post office late in the day, they will retrieve them.
Great.
I believe the 10 a.m. deadline was for people who wanted to go to the town clerk's office and retrieve their ballot.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I'll go back to our standard deck. So as I said, the IVS will be set up by the special assistant registrars. You should familiarize yourself with the video on it, just in case for some reason something happens and they're late in coming. And I would also, point out there is at least one handicap booth. We are not using ballot pens, so there should be no complaints that the pens are drying out. There will be several hundred golf pencils, okay, available to you. We'll put them by the official checker, and I guess we really haven't thought that out. I don't think we'll sit there and have them in the whole box out. Maybe the official checker or the COVID safety monitor can put out 5 or 10 at a time for people to pick up, or maybe the official checker can just push one through with the ballot. We haven't really thought that through, but we're open to suggestions related to that. So again, we have those pencils, and the special assistant registrars, you can dismiss them earlier in this case. Basically, there's not much for them to do besides the IVS. So once that machine is set up, remember, they have to do 2 polling places each. So, let's get them on their way to the second polling place if you're the first one they arrive at. Okay, we're not worrying about the tabulators. This is a reminder related to those absentee ballot rules that a voter before 10 a.m. This is actually wrong. We still haven't fixed this. The voter has to first go to the town clerk's office before 10 a.m. to retrieve and to tell the town clerk that they're withdrawing their ballot. They do not call us. They have to go to the town clerk. We'll fix this before we repost it online. Okay. Inactive voters. I never remember if it's a yellow list or a green list. I think it's a yellow list now. I think we changed that. So again, as you know, we provide a list to you of inactive voters, okay, who are folks who, for some reason, we think they've moved. We put them on this inactive list, but all they have to do is show up at the polls, and they can be reactivated. In order to reactivate a voter, the voter must fill out a new voter registration card, okay? So we have had in the past issues where we find voters have been reactivated, but we are not getting the cards back. So we want to remind you, if you're allowing somebody who is inactive to vote, okay, you should be getting a new voter registration card from them, and that should be in the end of the night materials that you give back to us. Okay. And I also want to point out, because it's a primary, you're going to have, and I think it'll be rare in this case because I don't think it's an enthusiastic primary, to be frank, but you have people who show up and they say, what do you mean I can't vote? I've been voting such and such for 75 years. Okay. Now, they may have been voting for a particular party for 75 years, but if they were not registered as a member of that party, or they were registered unaffiliated or the other party, that change cannot be made on election day. If they're changing between 2 parties, that change had to be made 3 months ago, okay? So in this case, it had to be made by May 11th. Or if they're unaffiliated, that change had to have been made by the day before the election. So you may have some people who are not on the paper list, not on the inactive list. Where would you go? You'd use that little lookup tool, whenever in doubt, that you're going to have on your phone or your tablet, okay? And you can look up any voter there, and you can say, look, we can show you, this is how you're registered, etc. And you know what's great? We're really pretty good at this. If the voter is at all obnoxious about it, we will scan and email to you their voter registration card. so they can see their signature themselves. Okay, that really cuts down on the complaints. In a worst case scenario, we'll go through it. We always try to diffuse the situation, and because this is a federal election, if somebody continues to be angry and disturbed related to this, you can give them a provisional ballot, and we'll review those. Okay.
If they're inactive, can they vote if we give them the new voter registration card?
If they're inactive and they're a member of a party, but you can't say, I'm an inactive Democrat and today I want to vote in the Republican primary. When you're reactivated, you have to choose whatever your status was that day or previously. Okay.
Do we make it and then we write them in on the book we write them in the book?
Yes.
And do we put some initial beside them?
Nope. You're going to make a note in the moderator's diary.
Okay.
Okay, and then
cross them off the inactive.
And they're crossed off. Yep. Mm-hmm. Let's see. There's no electronic book. Let's see. Transferring voters. Again, I don't think you're going to see a high volume of this, but if you're at the new polling place and someone says, oh, you know, I used to live in Glenville and I've moved to North Miamis and all my neighbors said this is where I vote, you must call the old polling place to verify the voter has not voted. You must fill out a new registration card. The official checker writes the name of the person in the book and crosses it out. And again, we do not have an electronic checker. And if you're at the old polling place, you'll be receiving the call and the checker does not cross the voter out because that's our indication that they voted. Instead, they write DEL next to the voter's name. Again, if you're a moderator or an assistant registrar, it really behooves you for this election to review the YouTube video for the super checkers. Okay, because they're all going to need breaks several times during the day. And, you know, you three are basically the only people available to relieve them. They don't have the benefit of an ID checker or the electronic checker. All right, so we have two special kinds of ballots, which are rarely issued, but we want to make sure that you understand how to deal with them. And there is pretty clear paperwork related to them in the assistant registrar and moderators books that are distributed for the election, okay? So the first is a challenge ballot. Challenge ballots are available in any election. They are basically given if any other person in the polling place, okay, or if in fact you get an instruction from Mary and I, sometimes, I don't believe we've done any for this election, we will jointly send a communication and say, we would like this voter challenged. And a voter is challenged for identity, okay, meaning they're not who they claim to be, disenfranchisement for a felony, which means they are either a felon and they've escaped to come vote, or more likely the case is that they're on parole, because if you're on parole, you have not yet completed your service. If you're on probation, you have. So this is not, I mean, we don't get a lot of that in Greenwich, to be honest. Or lack of bona fide residence in district. That's what you see. And you don't see it often, but the cases have usually been, we've had a diligent assistant registrar, somebody comes in, they go up to them discreetly and they say, look, I know you moved out of town 6 months ago, right? You sold your house, right? You used to live next door to me, etc. Why are you voting here? And they're challenging that voter. Typically, one of two things happens that I've seen. The voter either turns around and walks away, and that's what happens in 9 out of 10 cases, or they may continue to say, oh, no, I still have an abiding interest in that house. That's my cousin, and I stay overnight there all the time, and it's still one of my residences. So at that point, okay, if neither side is backing down, the moderator winds up being judge and jury in this case. So they listen to the two stories and they make a decision to either let the voter vote regularly by just giving them a ballot, or by offering them a challenge ballot. And if you do offer a challenge ballot, there are instructions in the manual. Basically, they're given a regular ballot. You're going to want to set them down somewhere, or you're going to want to observe them while they're voting. So we have had situations where we've given people a challenge or a provisional ballot, and then we don't pay attention, and then they just go slip it in the tabulator and walk out because it is the same ballot. So you're going to want to sort of be in between them and the receptacle for ballots. Their ballot would be folded. It would be put in a challenge envelope. They're given a receipt, okay, related to this, and you will write all this up in your moderator diary and in the paperwork. I can't remember the last time we had a challenge ballot, okay? And my memory does get a little foggy these days. My wife hits me on the head with the frying pan every once in a while, and I'm getting a little, Martine likes that, and so things get jiggled around up there, but I don't remember any. Now, we do occasionally have a provisional ballot. So the provisional ballot, just to close the loop on the challenge ballot. So the voter has not technically voted, okay? And so in order to reconcile the number of ballots cast versus the number of people checked off, you do not check that person off. They're marked as CB next to the voter's name when they proceed through. You will instruct the official checker to do that. So as I was saying, what we do have is we have provisional ballots. This could be somebody who, again, in the case of the primary, they're not on the active list and they're not on the inactive list, and yet they say, oh, I know that I registered with the party. Your records must be wrong. So what happens is you say, okay, we can give you a provisional ballot. Those ballots are used for federal offices only. Good news is at this election, the office on the ballot is a federal office. The voter can vote it, put the ballot in a sealed envelope. It is a special envelope, which is in with your materials, and the ballot is sealed. Those come back to our office, and Mary and I have 6 days after the election to research if there were any clerical errors and decide whether or not to count that ballot. My previous experience related to this is that we have had DMV issues in the past, and we used to count about 50% of those ballots. Nowadays, for a regular election where there's EDR, usually the voter just goes to EDR and it gets solved that way, and there's no need for a provisional because then they're guaranteed to vote. However, on a primary, there is no EDR, so I could see situations where someone would request or be offered a provisional ballot.
What's EDR?
Election day registration. So that's at town hall for an election for people who have not registered to vote previously. Again, the voter is given a receipt and they're given a serialized ballot envelope, which you'll have there. You'll just mark it number 1 and your district number because you probably won't have more than one. And again, the official checkers, or the super checkers, as we call them in this election, will mark PB for provisional ballot next to the voter's name, and they will not cross the voter off. Curbside voting. Okay, so we briefly touched on this before. It's for those who are temporarily disabled. You need 2 polling place officials. Now, this is written for a regular election where we say at minimum different parties. Just as a reminder, if you work for the Mary, you don't necessarily have to be a Democrat. She's just hired 50% of the voters. And definitely if you work for me, I have many people who are unaffiliated and a few Democrats as well. So we basically divide this up based on how you were hired, not on your voter registration. So the important part in almost all of these cases is that you have people of, from the being hired in different, by the two different folks. And although technically it's two separate elections running, you don't have enough people to say to grab two Democrats in this case or two of Mary's people and go, because that'd leave nobody in the room. So you're probably going to want to have the two ARs go out and do this, okay? In this case, I would bring the ballot and, if not a privacy sleeve, a separate piece of paper to put over the person's ballot so that you can ensure their safety, or excuse me, their privacy when you bring the ballot back into the polling place. Any questions on curbside voting? Or any questions on anything up
I have a question, Fred. I just went on the website. I'm trying to find information about those two drop boxes. Is that listed anywhere?
I found it yesterday evening on the town clerk's website, because the town clerk is in charge of those ballot boxes.
But you know, it's a very good point. And Mary loves to talk to the guy who runs the website for the town. And she'll probably call him on Monday morning and say, could you, put something about the Dropbox on the front page of the website?
Yes.
He'll do that. And I think that would be a smart thing to do. Thank you very much. It's a great idea.
And is it okay? I work at First Congregational Church in Old Greenwich, and a lot of the people there are elderly. And a lot of people have said they sent in the absentee ballot request but haven't received the ballot. So it's okay if I put that on if I send our congregation an email with that information.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Sure.
Yes.
Right? Because, yeah, they would actually use it.
Yeah,
okay.
Without a doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Other questions? Okay. So I'm going to spend zero time on the IVS machine because you all have that great video to watch. You do need to make sure that it gets set up, and you do need to pay attention to privacy. We have realized that with this system, you do not want it set up so that somebody could be standing behind the voter. So you need to sort of orient it so that the voter's back is to the wall and they're looking out in the room towards the open space so that the computer monitor can't be seen, okay? It does not need a phone line, so it can be moved around. It does need power. We give you extension cords, no big deal. Just be careful. Obviously, many people who use that are visually impaired, so you don't want them to trip over the cord. Okay, so at this point, we talk generally about sort of emergency preparedness in a polling place. We've already gone over sort of all the COVID-related stuff, so we just want to go over sort of what we call our the basics of our emergency response plan, which is that the safety of the poll workers is paramount. Recovering the materials of the election is a secondary concern, but related to that, if you are a official checker, when you're exiting the room because there's some sort of an emergency, take your book with you, okay? If you're the tabulator tender and it's at all possible, we don't want you tripping over it, but especially in this case, since there's no wires, plugs, etc., roll the thing out with you, okay? And if you're a moderator, etc., take your diary or other things. But otherwise, the important part is you stay safe, okay? if you have an issue, call 911 before you call us, okay? But of course, we do want to know if there's any sort of an issue, but make sure you're safe first. The moderator is, of course, the go-to person. If the moderator's unavailable, talk to the assistant registrars, who should know where the moderator notebook is, which has all the relevant phone numbers. As I mentioned, the tabulator tender is responsible for the tabulator. The ballot clerks, who in this case are the official checkers, should be pulling, grabbing all the ballots and their books. And all of this should only be done if time and conditions permit. And this is an actual factual case in Trumbull. You see the tabulator tender is outside. They actually brought their battery packs out too, which is sort of way above the, Call of Duty in my mind, because there is a battery built into the tabulator as well. And you see the fire, the firemen here are leaving the building, having inspected to make sure that it was safe. There was a fire alarm there. So good thinking by those poll workers. So we're nearing the end. Is there anything that we're missing related to items so far? Because at this point, we're basically going to go through the moderator's return and what happens after 8 o'clock.
What time do we have to arrive, Fred?
Well, so, I'm not there at 5 a.m. So I believe we try and tell people that they should be there at 5. I sometimes tell some people come around 5:15 because I feel really bad saying 5 o'clock. But yeah, you really should be there at 5 o'clock, right? And the building should be open at that point, right? And if not, you'll have in your moderator suitcase the name of your custodian. Call us also. We will track them down, etc. You obviously have keys to the blue bins, where all the materials are stored for you, the election in a box, as we call it, as will the special assistant registrar. Okay, so do remember your keys. At the end of the night, at 8 p.m., if there's a line of people waiting to vote, you're going to want to place somebody at the end of that line so that anybody else coming in is told, no, I'm sorry, this is the last person. Very rare do we have that situation. We also talk about observers. Now, we ask our observers to come. There's always a little bit of controversy and confusion related to this, right? Some people say, I don't want anybody in the room till 8 o'clock. We basically say, look, if the observer comes early, we prefer them to come early because we'd like to shut the doors, right? So we prefer them to come early, a few minutes early, let them go into a specific area away from those remaining voters and stay there till 8 o'clock. Of course, you are going to shut the doors then so that people understand voting is over. But if someone wants to observe and they show up at 8:15 and they start banging on the door, you do let them come in to observe the remainder of the process. So we're not going to have an ender card. We're not going to have a tabulator. You're basically going to take what I estimate is going to be maybe 300 or 400 ballots at most, okay? You're going to take, say, one of the checker tables, okay? And a couple of people can basically start. I was going to pull up a game of solitaire for those who didn't know how to sort. And basically, it's like putting your suits in, right? You basically make your 7 piles. We're going to give you black binder clips, right? And then once you've sorted them, you should have a second person just verify them, okay? And count them, okay? Have 2 people verify the count. And, what do you call it? And then you can, you could write it, put a cover sheet, just a blank white sheet of paper on it, clip it to it with the number of ballots for that particular candidate, write it on the tally sheet, okay? You're going to have basically 7 numbers, right? Announce those numbers to the waiting throngs. You're all done. Nothing has to get posted, etc. You just need to announce that. If someone does say to you, are you supposed to post it? I guess you could write the 7 numbers on a piece of paper and tape that to the wall. That's fine. That'll make it easier for them to observe. But hopefully this should really not delay the process any more than printing the tapes and putting the tabulator away and all that kind of stuff. Should go pretty darn quickly. Okay? Any questions related to how to hand tally these ballots?
Now, Fred, do you want us to call you with the end counts?
No, because I don't think there's that many people that are going to be waiting for these numbers.
Okay.
And also, absentee ballots are going to take much longer, right? So, yeah, there's no parties, there's no party headquarters for this. There's nobody clamoring for this data. Okay. Well, all your ballots are hand counted. So I will just use this as the rule. You know, if anyone disagrees related to it, if the 2 officials counting disagree, the moderator makes the decision. I believe that the intent of the voter should be very straightforward on all of these ballots. So I don't think you have much to worry about. There are no write-in candidates.
It says election officials from different parties count them. Does that matter for the primary?
Well, again, my suggestion is you have people who were hired by one person hired by me and one person hired by Mary. So that's okay. Whenever we say different parties, that's what we basically mean. Okay.
I do think in November, it probably will be more comfortable for people if there is, there won't be this volume of hand counting. But in general, I think because then rather than being a primary, it's actually a, contest between 2 parties. It's probably better too.
Yeah, in almost all cases, the assistant registrars are in fact members of our respective parties.
Yes.
So, you can pretty much always be assured there's at least one Republican and Democrat there, no matter who else we hire. Okay, moderator's return. So same document as always. Lynn and her multicolor printer are out there. Red means you're verifying info. Yellow means you're filling info in. Blue means you're signing. Okay. You'll be taking your oaths and you'll be signing. You'll be verifying the seals. There won't be any tabulator seals. Okay. Won't be any memory cards. All there'll be is a bag of ballots and the outer and inner door seals. Okay. So that also will go much quicker for you. Election in a box seal and the number of ballot packages and the number of ballot bags. Again, no tabulator. This sheet will be entirely filled in for you. It'll have the name of the delivery person from DPW, right? Basically, you're just going to be having the assistant registrars and the moderator sign this document in the morning. The official checker certificate. Do not look here at book 1 and book 2. That's for a more complex election. You're going to have 2 of these sheets, okay? You're going to have one sheet for the Republicans and one sheet for the Democrats, right? And there's some key numbers on this sheet, okay? The number of names in the official checklist when you close the polls. So the checkers know how many people were in the book when they started. And then they're going to write people into the book as the day goes on. They're going to write in those inactive people. They're going to write in people who have transferred in. They're going to subtract the number of people who have moved out. Okay. And they're probably going to get, provided by you, a printout that I'll be sending you all the night before of any people who have newly registered since we printed the books. Okay, that's called the supplemental list. We tell the official checkers all of these people should be written into the book. Don't use these extra loose papers because you may, in fact, miss somebody. Take them all, write them into the book in the morning, okay, so that if the voter comes, you're able to greet them and give them the service they deserve. And so they have a worksheet that'll have that number. Total number of names checked as having voted in person. They're going to have that number too. It's the number of cross-offs at the end of the night. This number here with the absentee ballots, they're going to have a number, but to be honest, it's probably not going to be accurate because there's going to be a lot of A's and a lot of absentee ballots, and absentee ballots are going to be coming in till 8 o'clock at night. So you're going to have a number, but to be honest, we actually are not going to use that number. But again, they should fill it in as part of what they're doing. And then there's D, which is just adding those other two numbers. So the checker will sign, the Democratic checker will sign their book, the Republican checker will sign their book. Assistant registrars just sign both books, right? That way there's no confusion related to whether or not you signed the right one. But sign both books and sign both pieces of paper, okay? Because there's also a place to fill in for in the book. So the ballot clerk is also going to be filling out this ballot log worksheet, okay? And you're going to be working with them. So you're going to have one of these for the Democratic ballots and one of these for the Republican ballots. Normally, we tell you there will be no additional ballots delivered after the opening of the polls. That still remains true, but in an emergency, if you're photocopying ballots, you're going to need to make some notation here. So again, since there's usually 100 in a package, if you make 50 ballots, put in 0.5, okay? If you make 100 ballots, put in 1, okay? I wouldn't make too many ballots, but I would keep it in either 50 or 100 increments, because at the end, you are going to have to count those loose ballots that are remaining and let us know how many of them are around so that we can maintain a good chain of custody. And again, you're going to have the total number of spoiled ballots, if any, and the number of abandoned ballots. Now, we didn't run through it because it's in the ballot clerk training, which we didn't go over today, but spoiled ballots are ballots where the voter made a mistake and they ask for a new ballot. There's only one race here. I find it hard to believe that there's going to be too many people making a mistake. But of course, if they do, they are entitled to go back to the ballot clerk. That ballot will be spoiled. It'll be, folded up and put in the the spoiled ballot envelope, and they'll be given a new ballot. And abandoned ballots, as we mentioned, are ballots that are somehow floating around the polling place that have not been placed in the tabulator or on top of the tabulator, okay? If it gets all the way to the top of the box, you can push it through the hole. And those should be signed by the ballot clerk. Closing of the polls. There's no public counter because there's no tabulator. There's no tabulator seal. So again, you're going to have your ballot bags, the inside cabinet where we store those ballots, and you're going to have your outer seal. Okay. And of course you will sign. There'll be this is a write-in tally sheet, but you know what? Your tally sheet for the day is going to look very similar. It's just going to say hand count and total, and those numbers will be the same, right? And it'll have the names of the candidates and the uncommitted, okay? It's going to be very simple. You're not going to have any tick marks or anything like that because you're basically just going to count the number of ballots for that office and that person, and it'll be written in on this sheet, okay? Don't forget the blue bins must be locked and sealed, both the inner and outer compartments. There's no tabulator tape to display because there are no tabulators. And so finally, there is the night before email, which you should all be looking out for. And I want to point out, we send these things. I'm not sure if I'll send it through the computer, through Easy Vote or just do it manually. But I do want to mention, you know, we use this new computerized sort of poll worker management system. And so a lot of times the emails we send out, they don't come from Mary or I. They come from Town of Greenwich registrars of voters. So I would suggest, if you know how to whitelist an address, which is you sort of click on it or right click on it, and then there'll be a choice like saying like, this message is not spam or something like that. Always allow these messages, do that. Because we do find some of these messages are getting marked in people's spam folders. So as a result, what we're trying to do is if we send out an important message, we're also sending you a one-way text to tell you, hey, we sent you a message. But again, I don't know, we got everybody's cell numbers right, et cetera. I mean, I think it's generally working, but if you do whitelist those addresses, that's helpful. Okay. I'll take questions and then we'll give answer 3 and then we're wrapped up. Well, I'm not hearing any questions, but I will mention one thing related to 17-year-olds, because again, we did not do the official checker training here today. So if a 17-year-old is going to be turning 18 before November 3rd, they are eligible to vote. So again, that's one of the reasons why I urge you all to watch the Super Checker training. This was gone over there. So in the back of the checker books, they're going to have a list of all of these 17-year-olds. We instruct them to take that list, and it says when their birth dates are, okay? It calls them the privilege date. If those dates are November 3rd, 2020 or earlier, they can vote in the primary. Take those names, write them in the book, okay, in the front of the book, in the appropriate streets, etc. Okay, and that's simply because if you have a young person, this is going to be their first voting experience. They want it to seem like, you know, they're dealing with, you know, folks who are ready and waiting for them, and they don't want the first words that they hear on their first voting experience to be, I don't see you in the book, okay, because most likely they're going to walk out in that case. They're not going to think, oh, I bet I'm on the supplemental list, okay? So let's make sure that their first experience is an excellent one, okay? Now, other questions?
Yeah, Fred, just to reiterate, these 17-year-olds have registered.
Yes, these are 17-year-olds who were registered, right?
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And is there any day of registration?
No.
Okay.
No, and that's why you may see some provisionals, because people will say, you know, I'm sure I registered, and we can't offer them EDR as a fix. So, you know, you can offer them a provisional ballot. Other questions? All right, well, so before we go, and I will take more questions, but we have, let's see, we have answer number 3 needs to be displayed. So answer number 3, for those people who are watching this on YouTube, you need to send this to Ruby and Lynn. Answer number 3 is Super Checker, okay? So all 3 answers should be written down and emailed to Ruby or Lynn for those folks who are watching the recording to get credit for the class. Listen, I don't know what I'm going to do with the next hour. I mean, I was planning on being here for 3 hours, so you ask me a few questions before we end here. No, nothing else?
Fred, I'm assuming that the town hall will, we will have access to the town hall to pick up the keys in the suitcase? It will be open is what I'm asking on Monday?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And so I would make sure, I mean, the numbers are on the website, but our two main numbers are 622-7889 and 622-7890. So Lynn will definitely be there. I believe Ruby will also be there all day. And however, you know, somebody does have to let you in.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you want to call ahead.
All right.
And so if you think about it, it's kind of a limited window. So we're asking you to do it basically between noon and 4 p.m.
Got it.
All right.
Yeah.
Carol's like, no problem, because Carol's going to be there. So
I have a question, Fred.
Sure.
Are we getting extra hazard pay, or is it the same pay as usual?
Did I mention the $15 for lunch?
Oh, that's nothing.
I tell you what I'm going to do. You can keep all your PPE, including the face shield. If you want the face shield, you can have it. Okay.
Wow.
Yep. That's how generous we are in the town of Greenwich.
So generous, Fred, I tell you.
And I have heard that some people are having trouble finding those face shields.
Oh,
So-
not believe me.
So it's a bonus.
Well, it could be, but these were so cheaply made. They remind me of Burger King crowns, because they have the little thing in the back like a Burger King crown that you have to clip in.
Oh, maybe we should wear those instead.
That, you know, you could wear them together. You could have the crown going up and the shield going down.
I think that's perfect.
Valerie, I saw a hand up. Did you have a question? Actually, she might have dropped off now. Okay.
Fred, I don't have a question, but I do need to go because I have a funeral to attend. So
Sorry to hear that, but I believe we're all wrapped up now. So.
All right. So I'm exiting now. Goodbye to everyone. And,
Bye, Trish.
and thank you.
Bye, Trish.
Bye.
Does the moderator take the ballots back to town hall at the end of the day?
The only thing the moderator, no, the ballots are locked up.
Okay.
In the blue bin.
Okay.
And everything else is locked up with the exception of what we call the end of night envelope and the suitcase that they always have. So the end of night envelope has the returns, has the official checker, you know, books, right? Stuff like that. Their keys, that kind of stuff.
And they take that to the town hall.
Yes, the moderator takes that to the town hall that night. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to leave you too because my other boss is looking for me at town hall.
Well,
Thank you, Mary and Fred.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Bye, Carol.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. It was great.
Fred?
Well, unless there's, I'm sorry, another question? Yes, Joe?
No, I want to talk to you after everyone leaves. I mean, it's no secret. I just wanted to ask you who I'm working with at the high school.
Excellent, delightful people is the answer. But what I'll do is, because we normally do this, of course, you know, as part of, you know, around this time, right, is I will send out to you guys in advance. There's a, what do you call it? There's an email I can send out where it'll automatically give us everybody at your polling place.
Great, thank
Send
you.
it out to you, and that'll have their names as well, and it might even have their email, I mean, their phone number and email address. Because yeah, it's great to coordinate with them, especially if you're a moderator and you think you're going to have trouble coming to pick up the keys and stuff like that. You know, you might have an accommodating assistant registrar who can help out with that. Okay, like Lucy, you might have an accommodating assistant registrar who might be able to help you out with that, right? Because if not, you know, she might not get invited to Sunday dinner, right?
Oh, my daughter?
Yeah.
I'll be there. I'll be there Monday afternoon.
All right.
With or without her.
All right.
All right.
Fred, I just texted her that as you said it.
Oh, you did?
As soon as you said it, I texted her, you might have an accommodating registrar. And then
there you go.
oh my God.
She was paying attention, Fred. You got it?
Yes. Yep. All right. Well, thanks everybody. I see there's stuff in the chat window which I wasn't paying attention to here. Anything here?
Okay, I'm gonna close out. Have a good
Yeah, I think
weekend.
we're all good. I will
Thank
check the
you.
questions. If there's anything that I missed, I'll send personal emails out. Have a great
Okay.
weekend, everybody.
You too. Thank
Fred,
you.
Sister Mary, much appreciated. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.